Okay, we're going to continue talking about the internet. Okay, here's the problem. In the 1980s, we had all these people, all these different universities, mostly in businesses and just all kinds of people getting on the network. Well, so they split it up with the MailNet and the ARPANET. Then they decided to call the ARPANET the Internet. Okay, it was being run at this point by Department of Defense. It turned it over to the National Science Foundation so they could create a high-speed network. And they did that by outsourcing it to some companies, basically some couple of companies in Michigan. Okay, so we needed a faster network. We had so many people on it, all right? Now, so what we had is we had the NSFNet. They created some supercomputer centers. Like I said, and there was this backbone that went down to the country, the middle of the country. So it started at Cornell in New York, went through Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. It went to the University of Illinois in Champaign, Illinois, down to San Diego. So that we had this a line going right through the middle of the country. So that this was to give academic and research centers access to each other's information, and also so you could just log into a supercomputer at one of these four locations and not have to have your own supercomputer, which of course was very, very expensive. Okay, so here's what it looked like. The NSFNet in 86 to 88, which is when they were running this. Notice Ithaca, which is where Cornell is. Okay, and the network is running down through Urbana-Champaign down to San Diego. It also went through Boulder, Colorado, at the University of Colorado, which was another eventually supercomputer center. Okay, so so everything was going to connect to these. So you see that now we're going to connect to the backbone going through the middle of the country. Okay, so by 89, this is what it looked like. So still wasn't that easy to get onto the internet. Yeah, U of L wasn't on it in 1989. Okay, so what was changed in 1990 up to 92 is we got a 1.5 kilobits speed. Before that, it was 56 kilobits. And now 56 kilobits we would laugh at. We wouldn't laugh at that. But you can see in 1990 we added some more nodes, some more major centers, NSF backbone networks. And so you can see we're covering the whole country pretty good, okay? All right. So the internet NSF had a faster backbone, okay? That was good. That was one of the things that we needed. Let's see, okay, all right. And the NSFNet replaced the ARPANET. So now we got rid of the original ARPANET and the NSFNet took over in the early 1990s. Keep in mind, the internet was not commercial yet. It wasn't commercial until 1995. So you couldn't be selling things there was no Amazon, and you couldn't go online and buy things. There was also no social media. None of that existed yet. Okay. Now, in the 1980s, it was also when personal computer sales skyrocketed. People getting their personal computers wanted to be networked. Okay. They wanted anytime, anywhere connection. And so they could listen to music and watch their videos, et cetera, et cetera. So Bell, AT&T, and Nortel, which were three private companies, Bell, of course, being owned by AT&T, they built some high-speed backbones and networks so they all use the same protocols, so they could all connect to one another and make the network bigger, okay, and actually give more access. So this was in the 1980s. Up in 1995, I show this picture of Rolling Stones because they were on a tour in 1995, the Voodoo Lounge Uncut tour. And so they decided, or somebody decided, that they could do a concert online. So out at the Shelby campus, we had a joint venture. We were doing research with AT&T. I'm sorry, we were doing it with Bell South. AT&T owned them, but we were doing it with Bell. And so we had a little auditorium out there that we set up. I was doing research out there at the time. We set this up so we could listen to this concert. It was a mixed blessing. We could see some of it, then it would pixelate that on us, and then we have to reset things and get back in the concert. And so it wasn't a total success, but they can claim to be the first concert on the internet in 1995. Now, the reason when I said they're always the same protocols, here's the protocol they're using. It's called TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. This is the format for transmitting data between devices. And it sets the formal rules for transmitting data. We have to have all of the computers using the same kind of format if they're going to communicate with one another. Okay. The good thing about TCP/IP is it was free. I remember I used to go to a node in Australia for all places to get it. But this really helped the internet grow because, like I said, I could go to a FTP site in Australia and get the application I needed, put it on my computer, and I could get on the internet. That was a pretty cool thing to do. And a lot of people did that because the internet kept growing and growing and growing. We developed this in '83. The University of Wisconsin developed this name system, and you can see that the upper division names like .com, .edu, .org, .net, these are the super domains where everybody is going to be part of one of those. The other ones like UK and therefore each country has their own initials, so we can identify where something is going, where it's coming from. And so Louisville, for example, in their domain, our IP address is 136.165. Everything that comes to Louisville goes to 136.165. But once it gets to Louisville, then we parse it out. And so we will have an internet address like 136.165.22.19. But the 22 and 19 is all local. Okay, but the Louisville.edu, what would happen is the domain, the way your computer works, is the first thing that you do, your phone works the same way. If you're going to go to one of these, a site, and you're going to retrieve something, the first thing it does is it goes to a domain name system. It goes to a domain name server. Now, that's just a giant database. And what it does is everything on the computer, remember, the computer's a calculator. Everything is done with numbers, not with letters. So when somebody someplace types in Louisville.edu, first thing that happens is their computer goes to a DNS, which is the domain name system server, and gets the IP address. Okay. Now this is with Kriegers. We said, I can't remember all the numbers, but I can remember Berkeley.edu, or I can remember UK.edu. Okay. Or Louisville.edu. Now what will happen is that Louisville.edu has a number. And so the first thing your computer does is go get that number and brings it back and gives it to you. It does it in nanoseconds. You don't realize how fast it's doing it, but that's a big part of the communication that's going on. So this was the domain name system. So now that's why we have Louisville.edu / whatever we have after that. Okay. All right. So this is a Gen Z, just as a couple of fast facts about Gen Z and the internet. They spend over 4 hours a day, Gen Z does. 64% say they're always online. Almost 80% say their devices are their go-to technology, their mobile devices, like your phones. Most of them, almost 97% have smartphones. They prefer uninterrupted entertainment of their music, movies, etc. They're aware that they're being monitored online, but apparently they don't care as much as you might think. Many of them do suffer fatigue from being online too much. They get fatigue from having too many choices, subscriptions, streaming, et cetera, et cetera. That's just sort of throwing a few facts in there in the middle there. Okay, now let's make sure we're clear on this one point. The internet and the World Wide Web are not the same thing. The internet, like I said, was invented in 1969, became the internet in 1983. The World Wide Web was released in 1991. It is basically an application on the network. Okay? Okay. So the web delivers content. The web delivers content using the internet. They should say using the internet. Okay. So the web is an internet service. It's like an app. Okay? It uses Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, which is always at the front of every one of your URLs, even if you don't put it in there. Your browser puts it in there for you. And this hypertext is what made using the web useful and makes it what it is today. It's, pretty amazing invention. This is Tim Berners-Lee. He's the guy who invented the web. He's a physicist from England. He was actually working in Sweden when he developed the web. He was working at an agency over there. Okay. So let's talk about for a second, what do we do on the internet? Okay. Well, we communicate with email, chat, instant messaging. We fast find information. As quickly we do distance education like we're doing right now, as a matter of fact. We look up facts. We use browsers, we use search engines, etc. We post information. We post videos, documents, photos, whatever. We check the news, check health issues. These are some things that we do. Okay? Here we are, some people in a coffee shop using the internet. This is an ingenious play on the coffee shop's idea. They can get people to come to their store, drink coffee, buy scones, and use the internet. And it's very cheap. Doesn't cost very much. You just get a router. They're going to have an internet connection anyway in the Starbucks or wherever you're going. They're going to have an internet connection. So what the heck? Let's let the customers use it as well. So this was an ingenious, because Wi-Fi was originally invented for home use. And this was one of the few times where it went from the home to the business. Usually it goes from the business to the home. Okay. There's those things I just went over. Okay. 67% of the world's population has access to the internet. So 2/3 of the people can get on. That means everybody can't. And that's an important consideration. Okay. Now, 83% of the internet users, then this is a U.S. survey, bought something online. And 13% of the American adults choose not to use the internet. Even though they have access to it, they choose not to use it. Okay, 93% of Americans own a smartphone that they use on the internet. And we talk about smartphones. This is what people in other countries use more than they use computers. Even in the United States, marginal populations, minorities, much more likely to buy a phone and use a mobile device than they are to use a computer. And the obvious reason is cost. They can buy a phone, but once they buy the phone, they can't buy the computer. And of course, the phone they can take with them every place. So it's much more convenient. Okay, many people, two-fifths of the United States people have experienced some kind of harassment online. And say 85% of American internet users say they tried to reduce their personal data online. But usually they give the data away online. Okay, about 74% of the people in the United States use social media. So that cuts across all demographic groups, especially talking about age-wise. Okay, so I'm going to stop here again for a minute. I'll give you a break, and I'm going to come back and talk about online marketing.